All right, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's Snack and Chat, Adopt for Life's weekly Facebook Live, where we explore topics that are top of mind for families formed by adoption, kinship, and customary care. My name is Chantal, Community Engagement Liaison with Adopt for Life. And as always, I'm here to monitor the chat. I'm going to post some links and key takeaways from today's discussion. Today we have a special guest host, Tracy Moisan, also from Adopt for Life. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. And our guests are from the Adult Leadership Committee of FASD Changemakers. Welcome to you both. For those that are watching, you may be watching this live right now, or maybe you're watching this on replay. So thank you for taking time to be with us. Feel free to ask questions or just type a comment in the chat below. I will just remind you that this is being live streamed on our public Facebook page. So anything that you do share in the comments is something that's going to be publicly available. So I do ask you to be mindful about sharing identifiable information. So names, health information, things that you probably just don't want to share with the public. So just keep that in mind. We'd love to hear from you, and we hope that you find this discussion informative and engaging. So before I pass it over to Tracy, I want to, formally introduce our guest, CJ Leckie, who is 37 years old and was diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome when she was a baby. She was adopted by her foster family when she was 5, along with an older brother and sister who also have FASD. She's a member of the Adult Leadership Committee of FASD Changemakers and guides much of its work. She's a well-known speaker on FASD, having presented at, participated in many conferences, seminars, training sessions, and other events for many years, sharing her experiences and what she has learned living with FASD. She's also an author of an online blog that is hosted by NoFast Australia and followed globally. She also provides mentoring and role modeling to young adults with FASD. In 2016 to 17, she was co-lead of a groundbreaking Changemakers study on the health and physical issues of adults with FASD, and it has received wide international attention and was published in 2020. She's currently the lead of the new survey on the quality of life for teenagers and adults with FASD, and preliminary results of which were just released in March this year. And CJ believes that those with FASD must change the future, challenging perceptions about possibilities and outcomes. Her goal is to help others with FASD find their voice and to help society understand that we are greater when we are united and work together. So thank you so much, CJ, for taking time to be on our Snack and Chat today. And I'm going to introduce Myles Himmelreich. He is also a member of the Adult Leadership Committee. He's a well-known national and international consultant and trainer on FASD. He brings his own personal experiences as an individual with FASD by sharing an inside perspective. He helps society better understand and normalize fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So thank you to you as well, Myles, for joining us. I feel like I've taken up already too much time, so I'm going to pass it over to Tracy because she has an abundance of questions for you. So
I have so many questions. Welcome back, everyone. I'm so thrilled I get to be here today, pitching in again. Some of you will recognize I am not the regular host, but when this topic particularly came up and we had the opportunity to talk to Myles and CJ, I couldn't help but say to Chantal, let me do it. So really, really excited to have you both here today. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in because this hour goes fast. So I'd love if you can both just maybe tell us a little bit about the FASD Changemakers, the work that you do, maybe the motivation behind how the group came together, and a little bit about the work of the Adult Leadership Committee.
All right, I'll start. Just kind of give you a little bit of a background of some of the other participants and group members. So the ALC has 6 people in it right now. Justin Mitchell, who brings their expertise on criminal justice. Emily Travis Hargrove, who is, she lives in America and she brings higher education information from there, is working with professionals in America, and just had a baby a couple of days ago. So that's pretty awesome. Leckie is the moderator for Flying with Broken Wings and is our newest member. Kat Griffin, who works in the FASD Diagnostic Clinic as a mentor. And then you guys heard about CJ and myself. So we are actually looking to put more people onto the leadership group from other countries. We actually have been collaborating with somebody in, where is Maggie in, CJ?
Ireland.
Ireland, yes. Yeah, so we're looking to kind of expand who's in the group, and because we find that having the different people in the group with different backgrounds, bringing different perspectives is something that's really, really good to have, especially when we sit down and start doing projects. Kind of somebody always seems to bring in something that we're like, oh my goodness, didn't even think of that. So I think that it's good to be able to have that variety in the group. It kind of started with being at the Vancouver conferences, which are very, very well known, very large conferences. And we did a lot of work together. Well, actually, at first it was kind of individually doing mini keynotes or things like that at the conference. And then we would start to find that we were spending a lot of time together, all of us individuals with FASD. You know, we'd go for dinner together, or we would go for coffee, or, you know, and it was like, so often we sit in the audience and we hear, this is what they need, this is what they should do, right? And they started to get larger and larger. And I think that's kind of where we started saying, okay, it's not about what we need to do, it's what the people around us need to do to support us. We're not going to change our brain and those kind of things, right? But we know some of the things that will help. And so we wanted to kind of be heard, right? And we were literally and figuratively given a stage to speak on, right? And our voices were heard. And it was quite interesting because one of the professionals in the field was asking right before we went up for, I believe it was our health presentation, he said, you know, we want to do this work and we want to do it with the individuals and get their feedback, but where are they all? How do we connect with them? And it was perfect timing, because we followed up and we were able to say, well, we've done this new groundbreaking whole body diagnosis health study, and we have over 500 people with an FASD diagnosis who we've connected with, right? And, you know, that's because I think that we find when you're able to connect with another individual and you're finally not the only one, right? Even if it's, you know, someone with a disability, it's still different than somebody with FASD, right? The ability to connect with that person and feel that sense of, oh my goodness, you get it, when it's like sensory processing, abstract concrete thinking, you know, those kind of things, to feel a sense of like, I'm not the only one, was huge for us. And I think that was one of the biggest things that not only brought us together, but also allowed us to feel it's okay to have our voice heard. And it's okay to say, hey, look at me, I do have something to offer, right? And so the ALC kind of were the leads on helping to develop those opportunities for people. And also to speak. I always joke, I'm always like, we're speaking on behalf of our people, but yeah, it's that voice that, you know, to say, okay, have you thought about the wording that you're using in this study or this research work? Have you thought about, you know, what the developmental age is compared to chronological age when you're saying, okay, we're working with adults or kids, right? So being able to offer those different perspectives, and then also be able to kind of oversee some of the things that people are doing with individuals with FASD to help protect them and support them along the way. So, yeah. CJ, do you want to add to that?
Okay. So he covered how the ALC came to be.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. But we're also currently working, we have Access to Justice BC. We were just asked to sit on a working committee chaired by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of BC. We're working on an FASD and marijuana study out of the University of Saskatchewan. We worked on the FASD and suicide for University of Calgary. We're on the health app for University of Rochester. We were invited to attend the Research Society on Alcoholism in the FASD study group. We worked with the YWCA. We work for the representative for children and youth on BC on the Excluded project. We've done sorry, there's a whole list of stuff, but we've just been invited to present the survey results to the Interagency Coordinating Committee on FASD Executive Committee for the federal government in the USA. Sort of like if we got, so I'm reading out of notes, so I apologize. And we've just finished consulting for a Hollywood movie script for When We Were Vikings, which is about FASD.
That's amazing. You guys are doing really, I shared with CJ and Myles up front, and I think shared in this forum before. I'm a parent myself to youth with FASD, and they're okay with me saying that, and sharing some of their information. And I just think the work that you guys are doing is incredible. And Myles, you know, when you say how important it is to have your voice heard, I think that's what many of us feel and are grateful for the work that you're doing, because as parents, being able to share with my kids / youth who are teenagers now, examples of adults who are using their voice and who are speaking up and who are doing just really such incredible work to reshape how individuals with FASD are seen and perceived and engaged. I think it's important. I think it's important for our kids and our teenagers to be able to hear those voices and to see people like yourselves doing that work. So thank you for that. And I'm very curious now about the movie script too. CJ, a question for you. You know, your bio, Chantal shared, you write a blog that's on the NoFAS FASD Australia site. A blog of yours that I read a few years ago was about a trip to a coffee shop, and it really spoke to me understanding my children's sensory needs and what that experience looked like for them. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach the blog and sharing your experiences, and any suggestions you have for parents to be a detective in understanding their child's needs and what things might experience for them?
The blogs are sometimes they're really difficult to craft. And sometimes I can just shoot one out in like 10 minutes. That one was actually one of the 10-minute blogs. Because I think I had just gotten back from a coffee shop. I'm like, this is insane.
And it's fresh.
Yeah, it's very fresh. You know, both Myles and I can attest to the amount of sensory things that are going on. And when in doubt, just kind of figure it's sensory. I also think that the older you get, the more aware you are that it's sensory. Like I couldn't tell you that something's too loud or the lights are bothering me. Like when I was younger, it takes, the older you get, the more aware you are of them. I don't know I'm not sure how parents can be a detective, actually. I wish I could tell you. But I have a son who has FAS, and sometimes there are like physical things, like he plays with his hands a lot. Like a lot of children I notice play with their hands.
Yeah.
Or they start fidgeting, right? And it's like, okay, you're doing this. And you just kind of look around like, what is different now that was 10 minutes ago, right? Is it a smell? Is it a sound? Is it, did the tag in your shirt move?
Did you suddenly feel the seam in your socks? Yep.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time just trying to think through what's happening right now, what changed, or maybe what did he perceive changed that feels different to him right now.
And the blog was, when you break it down, that is, you can change the environment to anything and there will be something in it. The older you get, hopefully the more you're A, aware of it, and B, you can say, okay, this is what's happening. But a lot of the time, it's also processing.
Mm-hmm.
You're processing sensory issues and it's, I don't even know if it's ADHD. I don't know if it's an attention thing to the sensory versus something else. But like the sensory stuff, it comes at you and you're like, okay, this is happening. You also have to process that it's happening in real time. And then you have to process everything. And we all know that processing is a very slow thing in us. And it's, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question correctly.
I think it's really helpful. I think some of the things you're highlighting on that it's probably not one thing. It's a combination of what's happening, our child's sensory needs, their ability and their processing speed to process all of that and respond. And as parents, us being able to support that process and understand that process. And I say this for me as a parent, adjust expectations as you go. For anybody who's watching, I probably should have asked the question better, in that the blog we're talking about is a blog CJ wrote about a trip to a coffee shop. And we take for granted I'm just going to pop in and get a coffee. And CJ very generously shared what that experience was like for somebody with really high sensory needs or sensitivities. And it's eye-opening. Chantel, I think we're going to share the link to that blog in the chat. But if you're parenting a child, regardless if we're talking about FASD or not, if you're aware that your child has some sensory processing sensitivities or needs, it's really worth reading.
I just have to say, I'm going to preface this. COVID is awful.
Yep.
However, I have said this, and I have said this to other people who don't have sensory issues, or more. This is Morris. More pervasive attention things, but I like how, in response to COVID, we have to stand on stickers. We have to wait in line. Things are calmer. People are less. At the beginning, people were less angry, and it's a very FASD friendly change that I kind of hope sticks around, but I don't think will.
Yeah, I get that. My son has noticed he's like, there's a lot less people in places, and he's really happy about that. And I agree with him. I'm happy about that too. So I know what you mean there. There's some things that have been a little bit welcome in seeing different environments in a different way.
Yeah, it's more compatible with in a busy world. It's just so much. You can slow down, and people don't expect you to make fast choices. Like if you're at a grocery shop, there's an arrow that says go this way, and then you go that way. And at the cash desk, there's somebody going, okay, you can go to cash register number 6. So they're directing you, they're cueing you. And it's been really, it just makes navigating things like grocery stores and coffee shops so much better. But The one coffee shop, I'm not going to name names, but the green logo, they still play their music as if the whole shop is like filled with people. So it's still very loud, and it's I'm just like, turn it down. Like, you have 2 people in here.
Yeah, we don't need it quite that loud.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, CJ. I'd love to hear from both of you or from either one of you any suggestions you have for parents who are parenting kids with FASD on how to help their children think about maybe their disability from a strengths-based perspective. So how do they help uncover their strengths, and how can parents help either cultivate or support that process? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that that's a huge idea, and one that's really important is focusing on the strengths. I was adopted into a home that had about 11 or 12 kids, and all of us had varying disabilities. And my parents always, would focus on, just like in the word disability is a word ability, right? So you focus on the ability, what you can do, not what you can't do, right? And so if you think about what an individual goes through, say a child going to school every day and feeling like they're banging their head against the wall, they're not understood, they can't keep up. As parents and caregivers, offering that safe place. So when I come home, if I don't put my jacket away right away, maybe my mom or dad's not on me, right? Just because the teacher's been on me all day, and then that teacher, and then I had detention. And so all day I've been told how I'm bad and I'm not trying. So to have a place to come home and just feel safe, right, is really important. Then being able to feel a sense of, I do have something to offer, because we take for granted the amount of time that we spend in the education field of, just going through basic school, anywhere from, 6 to 12 years. And society says you're supposed to go to this place for this amount of time, but we don't look at what that damage could be, right? And if the teachers aren't educated, then they are not helping support that journey, right? And so it can be a very long and tough journey to go to a place where you're unsupported. So to be able to have not only a safe place at home, but somewhere that really focuses on your strengths. So maybe you have a kid that's has a ton of energy and loves to run and jump, and you take them to a ninja gym, right? And that's one of the big things now for kids, is doing these ninja gym things, and or they join a drama club or something like that, that is giving them a sense of, I excel here, and this is what I'm really good at, right? And then as parents and caregivers, just taking that opportunity to acknowledge what seems like the little things, because from our own perspectives and our own experiences, where we do get attention and we do get acknowledged for all the things we don't do right. If I didn't show up on time for school, they told me and let me know. If I didn't have my homework done, they'd tell me and let me know. But what about those days I did show up, or maybe I was even early, or the day that I did get the project done, right? How often did anyone say anything then, right? Not very often. So it is really amazing to see when somebody points out what may be like the littlest thing, like, hey, look at you put your jacket away. Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate that. Or, hey, you took your dishes from the table to the the counter there. Thank you. Maybe if we could teach your dad to do that, that would be even better, right? So you're making them feel, hey, you do see me, and you see me in a positive light, right? And so understanding that you're giving them an environment where they can succeed, whatever that may look like, and a place where they can feel safe, right? And that may just be at home. They may not go out and do different activities, but at home, they'll do this or that, right? So I think understanding, you focus on the strengths, what they can do, rather than what they can't do. And then I think, and this kind of transitioning from teenager to adults, is really understanding that developmentally, that can be quite a bit behind than the chronological age. So supporting and speaking with the individual at the developmental age they're at, right? And so when I say speaking with, I don't mean you're gonna sit with your 17-year-old and go, okay, little buddy, guess what? We gotta do dishes tonight. All right, who's gonna do dishes? Are you gonna help? Yeah. You know, it's, I'm 17, I'm a man. You know, talk to me like I'm a man. I don't want to do dishes. I want to go play with my Tonka trucks. You know, and so you're still respecting who they are and, you know, that, but at the same time too, going, hey bud, can we make sure we get the dishes done today? I'll help you. Right? Like still doing those things. The reminders, if your child is like 17, 18, but developmentally they're 8, what would the expectations be on that 8-year-old?
Yeah.
What kind of reminders and supports would you give an 8-year-old? Allowing those things to happen for the child that's chronologically growing, but developmentally is still behind in other areas. I think that's really important to be able to do. And it's a hard thing to do and a hard line to walk, because it is going to be annoying and frustrating when your 16, 17-year-old decides they're going to come home when they want, and they're going to, you know, part of it is being a teenager, right? They're going to give you that attitude, but also understand that what else could be going on? Abstract concrete thinking could be one huge thing where they're struggling with time. You tell me what time to be home, but I don't know what time that means to leave my friend's house, right? So as they get older, it's a lot easier to take those labels and masks and be like, sure, I'm the kid that doesn't care, doesn't understand, whatever, sure, I'm the bad kid. Yeah. When, you know, I know for myself, when I left home and I had all these labels and stuff on me, I would say to parents, at the end of the day, if you know you did the best that you could do with the right intentions, that will connect with your child. And I say that as someone who left home as a teenager thinking, these guys over here are my friends and my family. You guys don't know anything. I don't need you, you know. But at the end of the day, I knew, as frustrated, mad, and as damaged our relationship was, I knew my mom and dad loved me and did everything that they could. So now we get to go from going through all the heartache and struggle with as a family to now we get to celebrate things. I get to call them and say, hey, you got to speak here and I shared how you did this and stuff, right? So they allowed for those opportunities to happen because it was, we got to find what you're good at, right? And we got to focus on what you can do, not what you can't do, and be supportive and have the expectations at the right developmental age. So that also means maybe your kid doesn't leave home until they're 32, right? And that's okay, right? Why are we, you know, so many people are getting in trouble because we're putting kids that developmentally are 8 to 12 years old out on the street, and we're saying, okay, we're going to keep the same expectations that we have at other people, and we're going to keep those expectations and keep those laws and put them on you as well, when developmentally you're only 8 or 12, right? So supporting them where they're at, giving them a safe place, and finding their strengths so they feel they have a sense of purpose.
Yeah, everything you're saying, Myles, is so relevant for our community. You know, our Adopt for Life community as parents who are supporting children and youth through adoption, kinship, and customary care. And so while, you know, I know we're talking about FASD today as part of FASD Awareness Month, but everything you just said really applies to a lot of families with kids who have a permanency history, because that developmental age is often so different than their chronological age, just based on some of the things they've experienced. And so we do talk a lot about in our private communities about, you know, we may be parenting 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, but that is not developmentally where they're at. And so parenting from the place of where they are and trying to strike that balance of having a young adult, but who still really needs more support around them. CJ, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's I can actually speak to that a little bit. My nephew is 16, and I mean, he's an easygoing kid, which is great. But playing to his strengths. You know, he loves music. He's a good big brother to my son. The other thing that I found is validating their experiences with struggles.
Mhm.
You can strength-based them, which is great, but my nephew and I have had talks about how it is unfair that he's not like other kids, how it is unfair that, you know, people his age are driving. You know, he is allowed to grieve those milestone losses within a loving, understanding comfort zone. You know, you can say, you know, yeah, it sucks that, and I can relate to, I can't drive, right? And he's wanted to drive, he's, you know, this imaginary car picked out, and I understand what that was like, and how, you know, little milestones get kind of put on the wayside. The bigger milestones, when you don't reach them, just they hit,
Yeah.
and they really are difficult. So just allowing that grieving process is important too. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. That's you're right. That's important that we don't gloss over that, and that we acknowledge where those moments are.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to something we talked about earlier around adult role models and mentors and the work of the Adult Leadership Committee. Do you have thoughts about how parents and caregivers can better help connect their kids to adult mentors or peer mentors like yourself, but also just in everyday life? Of how do we make sure that our kids can see adults that they can see as successful and focused on their strengths and their abilities?
I think one of the things is I think this is FASD across the board. When we do something, sometimes we're bunched in a group, right? And so they'll see, you know, a few of us up on the stage, maybe doing moderating of sessions, and then we're doing mini keynotes, and then we're doing breakout sessions. And it's like, wow, you know, look at you guys go. I want my kids to be just like you, right? But the thing is that I always say for myself, you give me a crowd of 900 people on the stage, no problem. You take me to a grocery store, you're going to see my FASD, right? Because of the sensory issues, because of the processing, because of the whole, it's easy, just get some bread. Well, what bread? White bread, brown bread, rye bread, sea bread, whatever. It's got the seeds on it like a bird or whatever, you know, and it's like, it's those things that can really show where some of my struggles are. But having parents and caregivers understand, and even professionals, because there's some kind of idea that, well, if you have FASD, you should be on a stage telling your story. And as we know, many of the connecting pieces for us is the story of struggling with attaching due to numerous different foster homes, adoption breakdowns, whatever, struggles in school, a lot of times environmental factors, abuse and neglect and things like that. So when, and we've seen this, when an individual gets up on the stage and maybe they're not supported or ready, but their worker thinks, oh, you should do that too. You know, and they get up there and they talk about these things. Many times it's, I never shared that with anybody, and I just shared that with 500 people. How does that feel? Well, you get this high, right? Like when you're up there and you do these things, you're like, oh my goodness, I feel amazing. And then people are coming up to you and just, you're great. Thank you so much for sharing. And then you go home, and when it starts all coming in, and you're like, oh my goodness, I just told 500 people about that or this, right? It's that one tunnel view of, well, look at these guys, look at what they're doing. But understanding that we work very hard to do the work. And as you know, the whole ALC, it's a team effort. We find things that we're good at, right? You know, CJ does blogs. I would never be able to do blogs, right? But I can take a way to explain the 10 brain domains and kind of just do that right away, right? So it's our strengths that we focus on, and then being able to have the opportunity to mentor and connect with other people. And again, that looks like different. You know, sometimes with the mentoring, we might meet with the individual every couple of days, or sometimes it's online. I'm doing mentoring right now for a young man in Texas. And so we talk every couple of weeks, right? And so I think understanding that it can't be simple as, oh, they have FASD, they should be on the stage, or they have FASD, they should be a mentor. It's really finding the right match, and if it's something that the individual wants to do. And again, they may want to do it today, but tomorrow maybe not, right? So I think it's important to find what works when it comes to mentoring and supporting, and finding that right match. So, CJ?
Yeah, I was gonna say, the idea of trying to find somebody and role models is increasingly important in today, especially when people are looking online for things. I really do think that there should be more representation, accurate representation in the media. I think also there are online groups that have worked really hard to connect people. Facebook, for all its like, we're on Facebook Live now, but Facebook, for all its things, has really helped our community and really connected us. I think right now, the best bet for finding each other is online, for better or worse. But I think that before your kid says, oh, you know, Shelly in Timbuktu, she has FAS too, you need to find out what Shelly's story is, because even at the conferences, there was, you know, a young girl, she was about 12. She really hit it off with an 18-year-old who was developmentally the same age. But the 18-year-old had 18-year-old experiences and the 12-year-old had 12-year-old experiences, right? So you need to also make sure that the person they're connecting with online, even though developmentally they're about the same age, they have vastly different experiences. So it's kind of like interviewing for the mentor position. Or you can talk to the moderators and ask, well, you know, my son or daughter or person, you know, they're struggling with this. Do you have anyone who's, you know, because the moderators generally know who's who in their zoo, right? Like, and who's doing well and who's really struggling.
That's a good point about using them as a way to help facilitate where there might be a good fit. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you both. I mentioned this hour goes fast. It's already 5:02. So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to combine the next two questions. There's a lot of research that you and your group contribute to. And in particular, I know within the last year, there's been the update to the Lay of the Land study that has been instrumental in understanding FASD as a whole body disorder. There's the quality of life work that's underway now for teens and adults. Can you share some of the highlights of your research, in particular, how it may be relevant to the adoptive community?
I'll share a little bit about the stats of the research and stuff like that. And then CJ, if you want to kind of tie it in, how it kind of connected. So with the health survey, it actually came to be just because we were sitting together and talking and we're like, oh, my knees hurt and my hips hurt and blah, blah, blah. And we found so many health issues at a table of 8 individuals with FASD that I was probably the oldest one at like 38 or whatever it was at the time, you know, and so we put together the health study, and what ended up coming back from over 500 people was that the average age of those reporting was 27 and a half. They were all with an official diagnosis. But the reason that we had the age, because they were reporting having osteoarthritis, hip dysplasia, scoliosis, early onset dementia, There was women reporting going through menopause in their 20s and 30s, like full menopause, right? Early onset dementia is defined as 64 years of age. We had people in their 30s stating that they had early onset dementia. Chronic ear infections, as an adult, I believe it was 147 times higher in our population than general population. So what we did, we took the health stats that we got and just compared them to what the general population stats are for these different health things. And it was always anywhere from 2 times to over 100 times higher, right? And so we asked a number of questions in about 26 different areas of health. So it covered a lot of stuff, right? And I think the thing that we found was we had parents and caregivers going, I thought so, right? Yep. And so that was really important. And then being able to get that information out there too. And I also believe that being able to do this survey, the health survey and the quality of life survey, allows opportunities for different doors to open, because we can talk about FASD as a whole body diagnosis and approach it from the health issue. That allows maybe for more supports and funding if we do go through a health avenue, right? So I think that was important. As much of the stats and numbers were important, it also was another way to look at FASD, right? And so to keep that conversation going, it's not about starting the conversation, because the conversation's out there, right? It's about having the conversation in the right way, right? So I think being able to do that really helped doctors in the field to look at FASD differently. And CJ, do you want to just touch on like how it was, these surveys have come to support, parents and adoptive parents?
Well, I have a few stats from the quality of life survey I'd like to share with adoptive parents that I think are pretty relevant.
Thank you.
So some of them are going to sound a little bleak, but I'm leaving on a good note, I promise. So
we're with
please
you.
bear with me. Okay, so 97% of our participants in the quality of life survey do not think that people understand FASD. So that's, if you're going against, or if you're coming into contact with any kind of organization or government policies, people with FAS know that they're not going to know anything. So we need to change that. The adult ACEs, if for parents, the ACEs adverse childhood experience, we asked about continuing adverse experiences, and we found that it was it still gets higher. So you still, you're 19, but you still need that support, and it's going to be a lot harder to find. The rate of homelessness was 5 times higher in the general population. 32% of the study participants had been homeless at least once. Parenting, there's 101 people continually parenting with FAS, parenting their child. And 40% of them have their own child with some sort of disability. In criminal justice, 54% were victims of crime and not the perpetrators, it's commonly believed. But 29 were charged with crimes they did not commit, and 39 were talked into committing crimes by others, and 17 were forced into committing crimes by others. And it goes back to Myles' thing. You've got a 19, 20-year-old who can be talked into taking money out of an ATM.
Yep.
Just use this bank card. They're going to be the one on camera, right? That's my car and I don't have the key. So all you have to do is this and drive it to this location. Who's going to get caught, right?
Incredibly vulnerable. You're right.
Exactly. And why would you not believe your friend who has all the best intentions, right? Because they're nothing like your parents. They like you. But here's the thing, for drugs and alcohol, it gets actually better in your 30s, and not the drugs and alcohol don't get, better, but the addiction issues and the way you're dealing with things get better.
We got ya.
And it declines. Drugs were 39%, and then it dropped to 15% for current use in your 30s versus your 20s. And the alcohol problems were reported at 49, and then in the 30s it dropped down to 30%. So with the working theory is that in your 30s you're reaching what you would in your 20s, and things are just getting that much better. I mean, it's still not going to be a cakewalk, but there could be cake. So yeah,
where it comes from, cakewalk. Who walks on cake? Where does that come from?
I know. Like,
Does that necessarily make it easy? Cakewalk sounds hard.
It does, and gooey.
Anyway, that's a weird tangent.
So
Sorry.
gooey. Yeah. Or if you're walking along and people are just feeding you cake, that would be great.
That would be even better. Maybe that's the cake.
That's a cakewalk.
I want to thank you both. We always say this hour goes so fast. I know we didn't get to all of the questions we have. If there are questions in the chat or on our Facebook Live, we're happy to try and track down some answers and do that as follow-up. I know we're a little bit over. I'd love to just leave you both, though, an opportunity if you have anything you want to say that we didn't cover, any messages you have for our community. Again, you've got a captive audience of adoptive parents, kinship families, prospective or awaiting families. Anything you want to leave us with before we wrap up, CJ?
I have, first of all, just, it sounds really trite, but you hang in there. Like, you also have to, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. You can't do anything for anyone else if you're a disaster, right? Generally things do get better in your 30s, but in their 20s, God, hold on and find help. You're flying by the seat of your pants. I have a saying that I picked up somewhere. I don't know where I picked it up, and I can't remember where, but it's probably on Pinterest, but it said, "This too shall pass." It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass. So just, when you have kidney stone moments, just freaking go for coffee, go out to dinner. The disaster is going to be there when you get back.
And there are better days ahead.
Yeah. Exactly. Why participate in a disaster without good food? Or cake. Exactly. Or donuts. Just you do you, because the disaster is always going to be there. I mean, not always, but
yeah,
I'm not sure why people call me motivational.
Myles, your turn. Top that.
Last word.
Top that. I don't know. Yeah.
You're the motivational speaker.
Yeah. So yeah, I would just say, from my own experience, know that if your child maybe leaves home or, goes and does something and you're kind of wondering, oh no, did I do everything I could? Did I mess up? If at the end of the day, you know that you did the best you can and you were that safe place that supported growth, focus on strength, and just sort of that listening ear, right? If you were that parent that when they came home, and it doesn't matter if they're 13, 19, 24, if they could just lay on the couch beside you and you just hold them while they're maybe talking, crying, or just need a break, right? I can tell you at the end of the day, when I was out on the streets and, I knew that my parents loved me, right? Maybe we weren't connected at the time, but at the end of the day, I knew that they loved me, right? And they did the absolute best that they could. My family, like I said, always told us to focus on your abilities, right? And for me, one of the things that really helped was that as I got older, for me, changing the acronym of FASD from fetal alcohol spectrum disorder to the life lessons that I'd had, right? And believing that there is something ahead, whether I can see it or not, you know, that the creator has something for me, is that faith, right? And as my parents said, focus on my ability, not the disability. A is for ability, right? And finding what I can do and focus on my S, strengths, right? And realizing that D, determination, is what I have, because what seems like the littlest thing, get up and go to school, there's so much work in that for me. Get up and go to work, there's so much work in that for me. Get up. I haven't slept because of my sensory issues, because of all this stuff. Those things, it's very difficult. And the determination to do what seems like the littlest things is so huge. So for me, realizing and looking at it as faith, ability, strength, and determination. And as parents, knowing that you're offering that place, that safe place for growth, right? And just one little side note. And if you're a parent of a child with FASD or a parent of a child with FASD, try not to label it as, these are my kids, you know, they have FASD, they were adopted kind of thing, right? Because if you're my parent to me, right? But why do we need to say adopted when we are explaining, you know, we're the parent? And if it's because we don't want that connection of, well, if you're the birth parent, that means you drank, blah, 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 right? We need to be able to talk about it, right? We need to be able to say, yeah, you know, and then I can see my parents were totally fine with it. Then maybe I can be okay with that conversation too, right? So yeah, just a little reminder there that, you know, you're a parent, right?
I wish we had some more time, Myles, because that one's a big one for me, the need to distance yourself and what that really says about the stigma, and questioning your own perspectives of that stigma. So there's a topic for us to come back to another day. I know Chantal is going to give us the hook here in a minute. So we do have to wrap up there, but thank you for saying that. And thank you both for being so generous with your time today and with sharing your thoughts and your insights and all of this fantastic information. This has really been a great session for our community. We thank you for doing this. I guess we'll wrap up there. Chantal, anything you want to add for us?
No, I mean, I'll just echo what Tracy said. Thank you to both of you. And I hope you take a moment to go back onto our Facebook page. There are so many comments there thanking you as well. And a lot of lovely comments there. So I hope you do both come back, because I feel like there's definitely enough to go to part 2, 3, and 4. I usually ask live so that you have to say yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Awesome.
And not just because I'm live, I'm going to say yes.
We're here at Developmentally, we're wrapping up our month-long awareness campaign with FASD, but that, as you say, Myles, doesn't mean that the conversation ends. So we want to have you back again and again to keep the conversation going. But next week we are changing gears. So please, for those of you who are watching, come back and tune in. We are joined by Trayvon Edwards, who's a PhD student at University of Toronto, and he's going to share some research that he's done about the racial disparities in the child welfare system. So another probably another discussion that warrants part 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we got to start somewhere. So thank you so much for all of you for, I know we're over time, but for being here live, if you're watching on replay, for Myles and CJ joining us, and Tracy as well. All the best. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.